Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. So today it's time for a little bit of a different reflective video around self-love. So self-love is something that's definitely being talked about more and more these days. If you're not familiar with the concept, it's kind of what it says on the tin. So it's all about treating yourself with love and thinking about how you talk to yourself in your head, how you treat yourself, the expectations you set for yourself, how you reward yourself, and all that good stuff. And it links in a lot with mindfulness, and it's just all about general well-being and happiness and fulfillment. And thinking about self-love and working on how you self-love yourself is something which has been proven to help reduce stress, anxiety, depression, and just generally make you feel a ton better, which certainly must be a good thing, right? And on this video I have sort of teamed up, collaborated with Boohoo, who have launched a self-love campaign, and they have a nice article on their blog where lots of different bloggers, YouTubers have contributed towards their top self-love tips. So I'll leave a link to that down below, and I just thought it was a fab idea and something that I could absolutely share with you guys, my advice and experience in this area really. So I think, for the millennial generation, which I just about fall into, as well as all the other newer generations, is it Generation X, Generation Y? I can never remember. I think we're kind of brought up in an environment where, you're at school, you're kind of always comparing yourself to other people, like who's top of the class, who got the most marks in this test. Comparison is something which is really part of everyday life. And now with social media, who's got the most followers, who got the most likes on that picture, who's got the best photos. Again, it's all that comparison and it's that competitiveness, and it really is often sort of the winner takes it all. So if you're not doing so well in a lot of these competitive things, then no one really cares about what you've got to say, or only really the top or the best in different areas are celebrated. And I think a lot of this type of attitude and us used to operating in these kind of environments means that people tend to have very high expectations of themselves and compare themselves against people who are really top in whatever area, rather than comparing yourself to perhaps what's actually normal or what's average in that area. And it's that comparison that can lead to a lot of stress. So I wanted to share with you sort of my top 3 tips for self-love and sort of being conscious about how you treat yourself. So number 1 is to remember that we are human. Humanity is by no means perfect, and we're actually not meant to be perfect. How a child, right the way through to when we die, the way that our minds learn is through trial and error, through mistakes. And you look around you, say you had a pet cat, if it sort of bumped into a wall, it wouldn't then spend the rest of the day thinking it was a failure. It would be like, oh great, I've now learned not to walk into that wall. Whereas with humans, perhaps you tripped up in the street, you might then spend the next hour feeling really annoyed at yourself because you embarrassed yourself and made yourself look stupid. And I think it's that kind of complex way of thinking, over-analysing stuff and then blaming ourselves for our mistakes, which is kind of holding us to a perfect robotic standard, rather than remembering that we're human and that's just how we roll as humans, So essentially you can't expect perfection, because if you do, you're basically just setting yourself up to fail, because no one can achieve perfection. So the second one is around kindness. So if you think about how you talk to yourself, is it the way that you would talk to, say, a really good friend or a family member? You wouldn't say to someone else, oh God, you know, you're really rubbish at this, like you're really messed up, or oh, you know, why have you put on all this weight, what's wrong with you? You know, you wouldn't speak like that to someone else because that's cruel and not very nice. So why is it okay to speak to yourself like that? Like, you have to look after and love yourself as well as everyone else around you. And it's that being conscious of that internal dialogue that's going on inside your head, how you speak to yourself, and thinking, gosh, that's really not a nice thing to think about myself. Like, I really should be much kinder to myself. So number 2, be kind to yourself no matter what. And then thirdly is mindfulness. So mindfulness has had such a massive rise to popularity over the past few years, with the focus moving on to well-being and mental health, and I think it's a really good thing. So I think I would describe mindfulness as kind of looking at you, what you do, your environment, everything, almost as if from a distance, from an external perspective. Sometimes when you're in your own thoughts, in your own head, it can really help to take a step back and be mindful of actually, okay, what's actually going on here? Sort of break the cycle of thinking. So perhaps if someone criticised you, if you got perhaps some feedback at work, or someone made a comment when you were out, rather than just sort of taking that on board literally, I think about it with curiosity, like, oh, I wonder why they said that. That's interesting that they have that perception. Rather than just taking it for face value, like, yeah, it must be true, I'm rubbish at this, or whatever it was. I think another thing to be mindful of is, are you telling yourself a negative story about yourself? So, oh, you did this and then you messed up and blah, blah, blah. And are you basically just picking out all the negatives and then telling yourself that's the story of what you're doing or what you've done? You know, is it a fair and accurate representation of yourself that your internal dialogue, your internal story is telling you? So I have 7 ways that we can be more mindful. I'm a huge fan of lists, so I apologise from going from list to list here. So the first one is around recognising your inner tone. So are you feeling quite distressed about something? Are you really thinking about something a lot, with some quite harsh voices going on up there? And also, when you're having these feelings, it's important to also notice the body as well. Like, are you really tense? Like, are you hunched over, or are there particular parts of your body that are really tense? Are you grinding your teeth? You know, just be aware, because sometimes we do things in our body that reflect how we're feeling in our mind, and we don't even realise we're doing them. So if you have time, it's always good just to take a moment. How am I feeling? You know, am I feeling relaxed? Am I feeling positive? And just that self-reflection can actually stop you from doing these things that are building up that tension and stress in you without you really realising. So the second thing is, once you have realised perhaps that you have a bit of a negative conversation going on inside your mind, the first thing to do is accept it. You know, don't now beat yourself up that you're being negative, because that's just the whole thing all over again. So accept it, just say, okay, I obviously really care about this because I'm thinking about it a lot, like I obviously really want to do well at it, and for whatever reason I'm really beating myself up about whether I'm succeeding at it or not. So accept that, that's happened, so accept it, don't fight it. And then the third tip is to do that external piece. So imagine that rather than you having these thoughts or feelings, it's a loved one, a good friend who's having them. What would you say to them? If they came to you and said, look, this is how I'm feeling, or this is what I'm thinking about, what would your response be? And thinking about it like that can mean that you have quite a different response to how you would just thinking about it about yourself. And sometimes at this point it can be easy to say, yeah, but of course I'd be really nice to them because, you know, they're my family member, they're my friend, you know, but I don't have to be nice to me because I'm me, you know. What am I going to do about it? And that kind of goes back to this sense of not being worthy. Like, why should I deserve to have positive, nice, kind things said to me? Like, yeah, my family members do, but why should I bother with myself? And that's kind of going back to this whole idea of being kind to yourself. So definitely steer away from any of that. And I think once you've got to this point, then go back to the original story that you were telling yourself that you've perhaps noticed is a bit negative, and challenge it, you know, say, hold on, what about if I thought of this from a different perspective? The most quite extreme perspective, which I think about actually quite a lot, is that fundamentally at the end of the day, the whole world is going to end at some point and get swallowed up into the sun, and everything here is just going to turn into like atoms again. And you know, people like get so stressed about supermarket shopping or whatever, and it's like all of this is going to go one day, like none of this is forever. It's really not. And then the universe will probably not even remember that we existed, you know, it will just be a little blip in the history of time. So I know that's getting probably a bit deep, but it's those sense of perspectives as well that can really help. My fifth point on this is to forgive yourself. You know, say, look, I made a mistake, or yeah, I could have done better, but you know what, I'm human, back to that humanity point, and I've made a mistake, I've done something wrong, and I forgive myself. That's okay. It's okay to do that, because I'm a human, and that's what humans do. So overall, I think this is kind of like about being your own life coach, you know, like how can you help yourself? Think about how you talk to yourself and make it positive. Don't punish yourself, don't beat yourself up. And sometimes it can really help to build out a plan and say, right, this is where I am and this is where I want to get to. And that can help focus you on the positives, the future, the plan, rather than anything negative that you feel might have happened in the past. And also to really respect yourself. So make time for exercise, make time to have a good night's sleep. So running around all over the place, not eating properly, not exercising, not sleeping is actually kind of a form of self-harm, right? Like you're literally putting yourself in a scenario where your body is gonna struggle. Like that is self-harm, like you have brought that on yourself. So take time out and be kind to yourself, treat yourself, book that cookery class that you were always interested in doing. Go and try yoga, see what it's like, treat yourself to that perfume that you wanted or whatever. You know, be kind to yourself, don't put yourself through it if you don't have to. So that's just my thoughts on the whole self-love agenda. Let me know what you think in the comments below. What are your tips for self-love? And have you found that anything has worked really well for you, didn't work? I'd love to hear what you think, so that would be great. So thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos and give the video a thumbs up if you found it useful or just enjoyed it. So that's it for now. Thanks a lot. Bye.